Oh my goodness, it's finally here. New Mutants has arrived. I can't believe it's actually playing in theaters. What is even happening? Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Ashley and this is Ashley Talks Movies. Welcome to my channel. Really excited because I have a brand new movie review for you. Today I'm going to be talking about The New Mutants. Yes, The New Mutants has finally arrived in theaters. After many delays and setbacks, it is here. And I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. But before I get into my full review, do me a favor while you're here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos, and also hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new video is posted. Okay, so on to the review. New Mutants has dealt with a number of setbacks, as I mentioned before. This movie was delayed numerous times, and then it also got caught up in the whole 21st Century Fox Disney merger. And yeah, I mean, it was delayed going on, almost 3 years now. And it was directed by Josh Boone, who I'm not really too familiar with his work. I know he directed The Fault in Our Stars. I never saw that movie. So I didn't know what to really expect from this film in terms of the direction, but it has a really great cast attached to it. A lot of the young stars in this movie have since, gone on to some bigger things. You have Maisie Williams, who many people know from Game of Thrones. Charlie Heaton, many know from Stranger Things. You also have Anya Taylor-Joy. You have some relatively newcomers, or lesser known actors. Blue Hunt, who's sort of the main character, and then Henry Zaga is also in this movie as well. So New Mutants essentially follows 5 young mutants who are discovering their abilities while they're being held against their will at this very secret facility. And to be honest, I really didn't have any expectations for this film. I wasn't too familiar with the source material, so I didn't have, my expectations were kind of tempered going into this. And I'm actually surprised that for the most part, I enjoyed this film. There's a lot of things that work and there's a lot of things that don't work. And the things that don't work, if they had worked, would have made this film a whole lot better. So let's just get right into them. So the things that worked, the characters are really interesting. But even though they're not as developed as I think they should have been, everything is made up for it by the cast. I mean, we have a really strong cast here, and they're able to sort of elevate these characters a little bit more than what they were given, particularly the 3 female characters in this movie. To be honest, this is really a female sort of led film, not in like the traditional way you would think with most like superhero films, but the female characters and the female actresses carry the bulk of this film. Their characters are a little bit more defined and developed than, say, the male characters. And they're given a little bit more to do than the male characters. They carry the film and they do a really good job with it. And those are the characters I think, when you're watching this film, you care a little bit more about what they're going through and what's happening with them, because you get a little bit more of their backstory. You get a lot more time with them in the film. Now, that's not to discount what, the male actors and the male characters are doing in this film. They do a great job as well. But it's just the females sort of, really sort of carry this. The setting in this really secret facility, it's supposed to be, sort of mysterious and things like that. And the camera work in this film really lend into that. I mean, the camera work in this film is really good in terms of sort of setting the scenes and creating that sort of mood, which, it helps, because it's actually, and the editing is actually really good here too, except in a couple of places. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But the editing and the camera work are pretty good in this film. If you followed my, channel for a while, if you've listened to my other movie reviews, I'm really big on pacing. I don't really have a problem with if a movie's really long or if it's short, as long as the pacing is there, because, it helps with getting you through the story. And if the pacing is off, A movie that's not that long can feel longer. A movie that is long can feel even longer. But this movie is actually, it has like an hour and 30 minute or so runtime, and it breezes by. I mean, I never felt like it lagged at all, even though it's slow in the beginning, but the slow buildup sort of works because you're getting to know these characters, and you're getting a sense of their backstories, and also sort of what is going on with this in this facility, and like why are they here. So the pacing actually is really good here in this film. Now, on to what didn't quite work for me, and there are a couple of things. While the story isn't really necessarily a problem, the issue I had with the story is that it felt very familiar. This movie feels like bits and pieces of other films. And I know it makes, references to certain TV shows and movies, and it's really going for sort of a supernatural horror vibe to it. But it just felt like it was treading old territory. In a lot of ways, I mean, this movie really focuses on sort of like this teen angsty kind of vibe. And if you've ever seen like The Breakfast Club, it's very much like The Breakfast Club, but like with supernatural horror elements thrown in, and more teen angst. There's even a dance montage, a brief dance montage, little scene thrown in this movie that harkens back to like some of those like 80s teen movies, which I don't know, didn't quite work for me. And, back to the whole supernatural horror vibe, it's there, it's present, but I really felt like this film didn't delve deep enough into that. Like, this movie should have been a lot creepier than what it was. It should have been there should have been a little bit more, it should have been a little bit more scary than it was. And it wasn't. It felt like it wanted to go there. It almost got there, but didn't quite get there. And it's a shame because the camera work is really good in so many of these scenes where it's trying to build up this suspense and this tension in certain moments. And, you're almost like to the point where it's like, okay, this might get kind of scary. And then it doesn't follow through. And I think that probably would have worked so much more in this film's favor had it really delved into the supernatural horror elements that were clearly there, but didn't go there far enough. Even though I said the editing was pretty good in this film, there are a couple of moments in this film where some things are kind of out of sync. I won't get into specifics because I don't want to get into possible spoilers, but when you watch the film, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And there are also very clear I try not to get into behind the scenes issues or drama. I try not to bring that into reviews or bring that into my movie viewing experience. But having read some things about this film and the production of it, it is very clear in certain parts of the film, certain scenes, where it would have benefited from reshoots or reworking of the story a little bit. Again, not getting into specifics, but there are moments where you're like, that feels like it was missing something, or they should have reshot that, or that should have been tweaked. So one other thought about this movie, Josh Boone, the director, has been doing interviews recently about the film, and he's come under fire for comments he made about the characters, and he's facing backlash. People essentially said he whitewashed certain characters, and the way I feel about it is when you have, especially like superhero movies, and there's not a lot of characters, people of color. When you have characters that are organically diverse, it would have benefited to have allowed those characters to exist in the film the way they existed in the source material. because again, the push for diversity, there isn't a lot of diversity, and the push to allow like people of color, actors, opportunities, like again, it would have benefited to allow those characters to exist how they existed in the source material, to allow them to exist the same way in the film. So yeah, so anyway, New Mutants is a pretty decent film. It's not the greatest film in the world, but it's not it's not a terrible film. It's okay. Part of it is because of the issues I mentioned earlier, but also too it feels very familiar, and it doesn't really do anything new, and it should have been a little bit bolder and done something new, and that really would have helped the film. But I think overall people will find more things to like about this film than they will to dislike about this film. I think overall people will enjoy it, and so yeah, those are my thoughts. So those are my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think about New Mutants in the comment section below. While you're here, like this video, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe.